and a very good evening. I bid to Dr. Idrol and Madam Noriza as the evaluators for my Viva. I am Nur Madihah Aqish with Muhammad Fazli from PISMP Tester 1 Semester 8 June 2016 intake. And my research title is Teacher Readiness in Conducting English Language Classroom-Based Assessment among Level 1 Primary Students SK Kampung Gemuroh. And here my supervisor is Dr. Haji Muhammad Jalani bin Muhammad Hassan. Okay, I will be moving on to the next slides. For the background of the study, for the practice of classroom-based assessment or pentaksiran bilik darjah, it has been announced by the former Chief of Education, Dr. Amin Senin, in November 2018 via the media of Berita Harian, 4th November of 2018, whereby this practice of classroom-based assessment is conducted among Level 1 primary school students to replace the formal examination of mid-year exam and final year exam. And the main purpose of this program or this alternative assessment to be applied among Level 1 primary school students are the Ministry of Education. They want to integrate fun learning elements in assessment, and they do not have to feel the pressure of examination formats like we have been doing before. So it is a newly implemented program for primary school students and teachers. So as this is a newly implemented program, Ministry of Education already provided the teachers and the other stakeholders with two main guidelines, which are Buku Panduan Pentaksiran Bilik Darjah 2018 and Panduan Pentaksiran Bilik Darjah 2019. These two manuals are the main prepared by the Ministry of Education for teachers to implement CBA in their daily lesson. So basically in classroom-based assessment, teacher has the full authority to ensure students' positive performance and development in learning session, because teachers will be the one that create the instruments, choose the suitable content and learning standard. So they have the full authority from the beginning of the lesson till at the end of the lesson, and the students' performance are being observed by the teachers from time to time. And there are 5 main essence in CBA, which are the formative and summative assessment. The formative assessment is throughout the lesson, throughout the year, whereby summative assessment is being carried out twice a year for June and November session. Variety of methods applied in the assessment, like PAK 21, suggested learning activities like role play, quiz, storytelling that being suggested by the Ministry of Education to assess the pupils, systematic preparation in the planning of CBA, from the creation of, from the constructing of instruments, learning activities, and the recording of the assessment, standard-based assessment. So for the learning, for the formative assessment, it must be based on the content and learning standard, the scheme of work that being provided to the teachers. And last, documentation and reporting of students' CBA performance. And in implementing a newly introduced assessment format, teacher readiness in terms of knowledge in assessing, ways of implementation and integrity are significant to ensure that the changes gives positive impacts from Stages 2015 and Arisa Tambi and Ruslan 2017. As I said earlier, this is a newly introduced assessment format, especially for the level 1 primary school students and teachers. So this research wants to find out whether the teacher is fully prepared to implement this kind of assessment in the classroom. Okay, moving on to the problem statement. Classroom-based assessment, CBA, is a newly introduced alternative of assessment that being conducted in the level 1 primary school students, Ministry of Education 2018. Meanwhile, according to Kadir 2012, the practice of new policy or system in education field can assess identifying how the elements in the policy being implemented. Therefore, we have the Buku Panduan Pentadbiran Bilik Darjah 2018 as the standard underlined by the MOE on how CBA should be implemented in daily lesson. So, CBA is a newly implemented program. Most of the past research demonstrated teacher readiness in applying school-based assessment. So, based on my related past research, mostly the research is emphasizing on the practice of assessment, which has been being implemented since 2012 in mainly in primary schools as well as secondary school. So there is not much of uh, research on classroom-based assessment. That is why this present study is being conducted. And according to Ferros and ASIF 2018, many issues contribute to in-readiness among teachers in conducting school-based assessment, such as lack of knowledge in assessing, problems in implementing the assessment according to the MOE's guidelines, and teacher integrity in documentation and reporting of students' performance. So based on this problem, this study based on this problem, this study is being implemented. This present study is being implemented. Also, to fill up the gap in the research field in which it emphasizes teacher readiness in conducting English language classroom-based assessment among level 1 primary students of a selected school in Kuala Nerus district, which is SK Kampung Gemuroh. Okay. Next, for the purpose of study, research objectives and research questions. As I said earlier, the purpose of this research is intended to study teacher readiness in conducting English language classroom-based assessment among level 1 primary students of SK Kampung Gemuroh, and the details of research objectives and research questions can be seen here to identify the teacher implementation of CBA elements, to identify teacher exposure of knowledge, and to discover teachers' integrity. So there are three main aspects under the readiness, which are implementation of CBA, knowledge, the aspect of knowledge, and lastly, the aspect of integrity. So here the research question to answer the research objective. Okay, next, for the significance of research. These findings of research is important to the two main groups this program, which are the authority in CBA implementation, which is Ministry of Education, GPN, PPD, and school administrators, as well as the implementer group, which are the teachers. So here, it is important for the authority to provide the implementer group, the teachers, with knowledge or exposure in implementing CBA, like to prepare them in implementing it, holding specific training, workshop, brief course or seminar, and also the monitoring and guiding process that should be practiced to ensure that the implementation of CBA is compatible to the standards produced by the MOE. As the same as the implementer group, it is important for the teachers to acquire knowledge in assessing students' performance, especially on the respective subject taught. And the transformation in teaching and learning process should follow the standard produced by the MOE so that CBA gives positive impact to the pupils. So for the significance of research, we'll elaborate more in the next slide. Okay, this is the conceptual work that is the basis of this research, whereby, as you can see here, for the aspect of readiness, it's actually a combination of model from Wallace Model 1991 and Abdul Said and Shanti 2017, whereby in the research they said the aspect of readiness can be seen from the elements of knowledge, implementation and integrity. So from these three aspects, we can see the teacher readiness in conducting classroom-based assessment. So for the findings of the research, it will be based on these three main elements. Okay, these are the related past research that I garnered. Actually, there are more, but I just put 4 here. And as we can see from City Hauzimah 2019, teacher readiness in conducting classroom-based assessment can be seen from the aspect of knowledge, skill, attitude and problem faced by them, and lack of clarity in terms of their roles in assessment, difficulty to practice integrity in giving students band for their performance, time constraints to conduct the program, Lan Ong 2014. Actually, for the past research, most of it we can relate it to the aspect of readiness in implementing assessment, whether it is for classroom-based assessment or school-based assessment. So as we can see here from the past research, they focus more on the implementation aspect, the knowledge aspect, and also the integrity aspect in the implementation of assessment. So some of the findings are also related to the present study that we can that later will be displayed in this presentation. For the research design, from this research I use case study design, whereby it is an examination of a specific phenomenon such as program. Program is classroom-based assessment, an event, a person, the participant, process, an institution or a social group. So that is why case study is being chosen for the research design. And for the population of this study consisted of 4 teachers in SK Kampung Gemuroh that teach English language subject for level 1 students. And for the sample, use purposive sampling because I can only choose the sample from the 4 teachers that teach level 1 students. So among that 4 teachers, I use random sampling method to choose only one English teacher for the purpose of this study. Okay, next for the instruments and data collection process, there are 3 instruments, which are document analysis form, observation checklist, field notes, and interview protocol. Okay, for the data collection process, there are 5 main documents that are being analyzed, as you can see from the slides. For the observation checklist and field notes, it was conducted in 30 days period. And the observation emphasized on elements of CBA, the 5 elements of CBA that being elaborated at the earlier slides. And the observation used checklist form and the writing of field notes. So I used the checklist form and also field notes during the observation period. And the interview protocol, for the interview, it is a semi-structured interview. It is conducted on 29th of August with the participant, and the interview session emphasizes on the participant practice of CPA as a whole, and it helps in answering the research questions and support the data from document analysis and observation. Actually, for the data collection process, I took about 3 months time, where it is conducted during my second practicum phase at SK Kampung Gemuroh. So it is easier for me to collect the data, and the observation itself took about 1 month period, and the other 2 months is for the analysis and interview session. Okay, next for the data analysis procedure. Okay, as you can see from the chart here, it started with the qualitative data, whereby we triangulated the data from various methods such as observation, interview, and document analysis. Then we discover the themes and sub-themes in the research, and we analyze the data and the themes. And after that, the analysis of themes is being verified by the experts. And moving on to the next one is the discussion and research finding, whereby the analysis of themes is being discussed and uh, conclude and being concluded uh, from the past research and so on. Okay. And reliability and validity of the research can be seen from the expert verification of the themes and triangulation of data. Okay, next for the findings and discussion, I will explain for the research question 1, which is are the elements of CBA implemented in the teacher's English lesson compatible to the MOE standard. So for the first element here, actually there are 5 elements in CBA, but in this presentation, I will only mention 2 major elements, which is the first one is content and learning standard based assessment. So here as you can see from the interview, participants said, untuk penyediaan instrumen susah nak tallykan dengan content learning standard dalam SOW, scheme of work. Jadi biasanya memang tak buat sangat ikut content learning standard tu. Okay, it is supported from the observation field notes, whereby in this lesson plan, the content standard is 2.1 communicate simple information intelligibly, and 2.1.3 for the learning standard express basic likes and dislikes. So this one is for the speaking skills activity. However, although in the planning it said like this, for the assessment and instruments used to assess the students, the teachers or the participant, what did she do? She asked the pupils to only draw emoji on things they like and dislike in their workbook, and there is no speaking activity conducted. Supposedly, if we can see from the content learning standard, it should be the aspect of speaking skills being conducted to assess the pupils' speaking skills. However, for the practice of classroom-based assessment here, it is not tally or it's not compatible to the content and learning standard. And as you can see here from the observation data, 30 days, in the 30 days period, it is discovered that only 9 lessons out of 30 lessons of the assessment conducted was based on the content and learning standard in the state for CFR Year 1. Okay, from these findings, we can conclude that the participant, she did the formative assessment, but most of the assessment implemented were not parallel to the content and learning standard of the lesson. Only few lessons managed to abide the standard produced by the MOE. What I meant by the abiding of the standard here, because according to the manual of CBA given by the MOE, every assessment should tally or should be compatible to the content and learning standard. However, most of her most of her assessment being conducted, it is not compatible to the content and learning standard. And actually, these findings is parallel to the findings of Siti Hauzimah 2019 from her research in pengetahuan, kemahiran dan sikap guru dalam pentaksiran bilik darjah bahasa Melayu di sekolah rendah. So this research is also quite the same as my research. But she did the research for bahasa Melayu, whereby the findings, most teachers are unable to plan the lesson according to the content and learning standards. So here the same problem also occurred in the practice of CBA for bahasa Melayu, and we can see here that the first elements of CBA is not fully implemented by the teachers by the participant in a writer's way. Okay, next, for the next element of CBA, which is documentation and reporting of classroom-based assessment. And we have the interview analysis transcription here from the participant, whereby she said that memang tak dok buat rekod pentaksiran yang berterusan untuk setiap kali kelas. Payah juga nak rekod satu-satu, buku budak pun kadang tak bertanda, ini kan nak rekod pencapaian semua. Sepatutnya memang kena ada, tapi itulah tak sempat nak buat. Okay, this is supported by the observation field notes, whereby from the notes I jotted down, pupils' formative assessment record is not prepared in terms of marks, observation, checklist or portfolio. And the participant also did not collect and mark pupils' supermine workbook and exercise workbook. And from the observation data, we can see that throughout the 30 days observation, the participant did 22 times of formative assessment. However, it was not properly documented and recorded. So here, as you can see from the findings, it is discovered that pupils' formative assessment is not recorded and documented properly as being underlined in the Panduan Taksran Bilik Darjah 2018 that produced by the MOE. So, as we can see, the main, one of the main aims in CBA, that the Ministry of Education, they want the stakeholders or the teachers, the parents, to see students' development and performance throughout the year, throughout the lesson. So how can we see that kind of performance? It should be from the documentation and the report and the reporting of CBA. However, in these findings, I discovered that I can't see the students' development throughout the lesson or throughout the year. Why? Because there is no documentation and reporting of CBA being prepared by the participant. So even she said here that she does not collect and mark pupils' supermines workbook and exercise workbook. So the students, they did not know their strength, they did not know their weakness, and they did not know what aspect that they should improve in the English language lesson, because it is not being marked and it's not being recorded by the participant herself. And this is actually similar to the findings by Hamimah and Rohaya 2017, whereby they discovered that in the practice of school-based assessment, teachers having insufficient time to do the documentation and recording of pupils' assessment, since pupils' enrollment in each classes is not small and each teacher has to teach more than one classes at a time. So here, from the past research, we can see the difficulties that the teachers faced on the aspect of documentation and reporting of CBA, because it is quite troublesome to, according to the participant, it is quite troublesome to collect and mark everything and put it under checklist or to prepare portfolio for each student and to make sure that everything's being documented. Okay, next. Okay, for the research question 2, how the knowledge garnered by the teacher from authority gives impact to the implementation of CBA. So here, we can see from the interview whereby the participant emphasised that tak ada panduan khusus macam mana nak buat instrumen sesuai and tak kuasai cara pentaksiran skills dalam bahasa Inggeris. Cuma panduan tu secara ringkas je, tak betul-betul detail dan taklimatnya secara umum tak berfokus pada setiap subjek. So here we can see that the documents or the exposure is given to the teachers, but it is only in general mode and it is not detailed to the subject taught by them. So if she is the English teacher, she doesn't have that proper guidelines or proper being properly trained on how to do the classroom-based assessment for English subject. Okay, like as we can see here for the example from document analysis field notes that I garnered. Okay, these are the exposure or the knowledge medium given by the authorities like surat siaran, panduan PBD KPM, manual panduan PBD and video prepared by the administrator. So most of the exposure here given is not detailed to the subject that they taught. Instead, it is more general on the concept, purposes of CBA, aims of CBA, how the template report for the summative CBA. So here the participant said that the difficulties in implementing CBA for English subject is that she doesn't have that proper or detailed guidelines on how to do the assessment for the subject, especially for the listening skills and speaking skills, because those two skills need proper training and proper ways on to assess the students. Okay, here, okay, like I said just now, the findings, the participant had the knowledge or exposure. However, it is not specifically emphasizing on the English subject. Therefore, it gives slightly negative impact to the implementation process. And this is also similar to the findings by Heiser and Norasma 2019, where the research also displayed that almost half of teachers that involved in their study never gain proper training or specific exposure based on their subject and only practice the classroom-based assessment from their colleagues' input. So when when they did not have the proper exposure or proper knowledge in implementing the assessment, they just did it according to what they think they understood. Okay, next, for the research question 3, how the aspect of integrity is implemented in the practice of English language classroom-based assessment. So there are 3 here, like the previous slides from the interview, observation, and document analysis. So for the aspect of integrity, I emphasize more on the how teachers how the participant give the mastery level to the students. There are 6 mastery level 1, mastery level 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So the excellent one will be mastery level 6, whereby the lowest will be mastery level 1, and mastery level 4 to 6 mastery level 4 is considered optimum level. Okay, so here for the aspect of integrity from the interview, she clearly said that memang tak ada buat pentaksiran formal, cuma based on pemerhatian rawak dalam kelas dan tanya-tanya kat cikgu prestasi murid gana. Lepas tu bagi gitulah tahap pencapaian tu. So here we can see that from the observation field notes also, I jotted down here that there was no moderation process held to decide students' mastery level. Instead, the participant only did informal conversation with other teachers and decide the mastery level qualified for them based on their performance in other subjects. So here, for example, the students only gain mastery level 3 for Bahasa Melayu. So the participant will give the students more or less the same mastery level for English subject, because she knew that if the students can only gain mastery level 3 for Bahasa Melayu, then the students will not have the chance to gain mastery level 4 and above for English subject, because English subject is much more difficult from the Bahasa Melayu. So she just gave mastery level 3 or lower than that for English subject. So it is not fair to the students students' performance being justified just like that, and there is no assessment, like formal assessment being prepared by the teachers to give the mastery level to the students. And next, for the document analysis, students supervise exercise books. So from the formative assessment and summative assessment, the teachers mostly use the medium of pencil and paper like students supervise exercise book. So from the notes I gained here, students who are not checked and marked, thus making students' assessment record unavailable. So when, like I said in the previous research question, for the documentation and reporting aspect, the teachers does not properly prepare the documentation and reporting uh, students' performance work like portfolio, workbook, list of marks or anecdote for observation. So there is no evidence to say that the students are qualified for that kind of mastery level. Therefore, it shows that the process of deciding mastery level is not done accordingly. So for the aspect of deciding, for the process of deciding mastery level, it is just done informally within during the informal conversation and just from the random observation of the teachers. So there is no proper evidence in the throughout the process. So it is not compatible to the standard provided by the MOE, whereby it should have the evidence of documents and reports for each student so that we know that they are qualified for that respective mastery level. So these findings is also similar to what has been garnered by Abdul Said and Shanti 2017, whereby the degree of teacher integrity is low at 60.2% in conducting school-based assessment as they did not properly assess the pupils' performance before keying the bands in the system. So for school-based assessment, we use the keywords bands, but for classroom-based assessment, we use mastery level, so it is more or less the same. And we can conclude that here the aspect of integrity is not highly integrated in the summative assessment and in the process of deciding mastery level as being underlined by the Ministry of Education. Okay, for conclusion, okay, there are three aspects obviously for the readiness, which is knowledge, implementation, and aspect of integrity. So I can conclude here that it is like a domino effect. When the aspect of knowledge is low and the teachers are not having adequate knowledge to conduct the classroom-based assessment, especially in this research for English subject, then it will affect the implementation elements of classroom-based assessment. So when the knowledge is not up to the standard, then the implementation process will also be low. And when the implementation is not fully covered all the needs of classroom-based assessment, then it will also give impact to the aspect of integrity. Where can, if I can re-mention here, as we can see that the assessment being the assessment is not documented and reported by the teachers throughout the lesson. So the aspect of integrity is cannot be seen when the teachers decide the mastery level for the students, because it is not accompanied by any reliable evidence to show that the students were qualified enough to gain those kinds of mastery levels from the participant. So here we can conclude that the teacher is not fully prepared or the participant is not fully prepared and ready throughout the aspect of knowledge, implementation and aspect of integrity to conduct English language classroom-based assessment among level 1 primary students. And by in this research, the scope is at SK Kampung Gemuroh. Alright, so from Stiggins 2015, he also believed that teachers' lack of readiness in conducting new form of assessment may cause by insufficient opportunities to learn the appropriate techniques, which then lead to improper practices of the assessment. So for the implication, for the implementer group, teacher and authority, MOE, JPN and PPD or administrator. So teachers, they have to prepare themselves by improving on the aspect of knowledge and skill, especially in assessing the students. And according to Web 2017, as a professional at work, an effective teacher has to prepare herself with sufficient knowledge and skills to be applied to the pupils. And practice positive changes in the lesson like PK21, fun learning, constructive approach. Actually, for the classroom-based assessment, it is not necessarily for the teachers to do pencils and paper like examination to assess the pupils. Actually, along the lesson, we can do simple Q&A, simple role play, simple quiz game, simple game or simple project to assess the pupils. So we can construct or we can plan any form of assessment that will not burden us as the teacher to be applied in the classroom. And the same as the authority, for the authority part, so as we can see that the aspect of knowledge in conducting English language classroom-based assessment for in this finding, it is quite low. Where therefore proper training like workshop or in-house training on CBA that is subject-based can be held to teachers. And Mustafa in 2013 also believed that teachers should be prepared with practical and pragmatic training before implementing new form of assessment by the developer or the designer of the system. So it is important for the designer or the developer of the system to gather the teachers and give direct input from them to all the implementer groups, which are the teachers, because they exactly knew what that they want the teachers to practice in the system, in the classroom-based assessment program. Next, for the recommendation, here I suggested few things that can be done to improve teacher readiness in conducting English language classroom-based assessment. First and foremost is the practice of professional learning community PLC among teachers throughout the process of CBA. So actually in the process of CBA, through the deciding of mastery level or through the process of constructing instruments, we can do moderation among other teachers that teach in the same batch, in the same batch like us. So for example, if the participant here, she teach for year 1, then she can do like a small PLC group among other teachers that also teach English year 1. Then they can discuss or share their problems on how to do the instruments or how to plan the learning activities to assess the pupils. So it is much easier when we uh, do the job in group instead of individually. And subject-based CBA workshop also can be held for teachers that teach level 1 primary students, and this is actually already being implemented by Jabatan Pendidikan Negeri Pulau Pinang, whereby the groups in JPN, they gathered the teachers, the representatives from each districts to together at the workshop, and they uh they construct the instruments, they do the learning activities modules to according to their subjects, and they uploaded it in the form of QR code at their Facebook. So the other teachers can just access throughout the QR code, and they can download the materials that they already brainstorm in the subject-based CBA workshop. So they brainstorm in their groups. Like if you are teaching English, then you have that group of brainstorming for English, for Bahasa Melayu, for mathematics, and they will construct instruments for CBA, learning activities module to assess the pupils. So it is much easier that they are working in group, and it is also uh, effective because other teachers can just downloaded the materials from the Facebook that they use as the medium. And the teachers also can involve in teachers online community in social media. So here, most of the teachers, they will share what kind of instruments or learning activities that they already practice in their classroom, and they will share throughout the Blogspot, Facebook, or Google Classroom or blog. So the other teachers can just downloaded it and adapted the materials to that suitable to their students' standard. And last but not least is CBA interactive reading instruments for level 1 students. So this is the example of reading instruments module that can be used by the teachers to assess reading skills for English language. So it is comprises of digital book, the big book itself, and also the use of Kahoot and quizzes as the game quiz to assess the pupils. And there will be rubric on how to give the mastery level for the reading skills. Okay, I think that is all from me for this presentation, and thank you. And I would like to apologize for any inconvenience throughout the video. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.